Welcome to the Savvy Ladies Wednesday Wisdom webinar. I'm Maggie Montemuro, and I'm the Marketing Manager at Savvy Ladies. If you have a question during the webinar, please type it into the chat box. And if you're joining us by phone, you can email your question to info@savvyladies.org. Today's presenter is Jodi Grinwald. Jodi is a professional leadership and personal development coach. She previously worked as a nonprofit executive for 11 years before becoming a certified professional coach and an Energy Leadership Index Master Practitioner. Jodi helps employees connect to the mission of their organizations, leaders create synergy within their teams, and organizations create the business and culture they desire. Jodi is also a freelance writer and co-chair of the New Jersey Business and Industry Women's Leadership Committee. Thanks for joining us, Jodi, and let's get started.
That sounds great, and thank you so much, Maggie. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who joined this afternoon. I know making time for this is definitely not always easy, as we're talking about time management today. And the presentation is how to get time on your side. And I want to start out by saying that time management is very different for everyone. It's not one size fits all. And time is really our greatest resource. And when you think about what you have on your plate every day, for many, it's quite overwhelming, it's daunting, sometimes frustrating. And we wind up, many times disappointed on what we did and what we weren't able to accomplish. For example, come Sunday night, for many people, before the work week begins, you start to think about what your schedule looks like for the upcoming week ahead. And when you look at that, you think about how are you going to accomplish it all and how are you going to find 5 minutes for yourself? And that can become very frustrating and daunting. So today when we talk about things, I know that in many of these time management webinars, you talk a lot about prioritization and making sure that you check things off your list. I want to talk to you in a different way today. I really want it to be more about the mindset around time management as opposed to the tools. Many people have already heard a lot about the tools, and we'll touch on some of them, but a lot of it has to do with the way we look at time management. So I myself, before I became a coach, listened in, like I said, on many time management webinars. And for the most part, I was wanting to walk away with this magic bullet of how I was going to reshape my schedule. And I was just going to walk away from there and everything was going to be great. I was going to have a lot of extra time on my hands. And that didn't happen. So when I thought about putting together a webinar, I really wanted to talk about where it really stems from. So what it stems from is becoming truly focused on what it is that you want to accomplish and believe that you can do. But it has to come without fear and frustration, because if you're fearful of what you won't be able to get to, or you're frustrated about what you haven't gotten to, it's only going to create more negative feelings and thoughts. And when you allow the feeling and the fear and the guilt to get in, the frustration and the impact just continues to go round and round. It's a vicious cycle. Before I became a coach, I wanted to share that as Maggie shared, I had a full-time job, more than a full-time job. And I had one daughter that was a senior in high school and one daughter that was graduating from intermediate school. And I never thought that I could find the time to go back to school and become a certified professional coach. I waited 2 years to finally take the leap. And the only reason I took the leap was because something major happened in my life that pushed me to do that. And if it wasn't for that major push, I would have never done it, because I never thought, how was I going to find the money? How was I going to find the time to go back to school and have all of this responsibility? So when I did finally do it and I did go back to school, I couldn't believe how I actually did find the time. And not only did I find the time to get one certification, I wound up getting 2. And the reason for that was because I was committed, I was dedicated, I was attached to the outcome. And because of that, I was able to find the time. It was a want, it was a desire. And when you're not sure of whether you want to do a specific project or task, or something seems daunting, the time just doesn't seem feasible or realistic. So there are 2 types of time. There is clock time and real time. And it's a new way to look at it. In clock time, there's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, as we all know, 24 hours in a day, and 365 days in a year. And all time passes equally. So when you turn 30, 40, 50, that's exactly what you are, no less, no more. But in real time, all time is relative. It flies or drags depending upon what you're doing. So think about it. You're standing in line for 2 hours at the Department of Motor Vehicle, and when you go to share that you did that with someone, you're like, I felt like I was there for 12 years. But yet, if you have children and your child is 12 years old, you'll turn around and say, it feels like I had them 2 days ago. I remember when they just went to kindergarten. So time is really something, when you look at it, you have, again, the clock time and the real time. It's really about how you visualize it and see it. So the reason that time management gadgets and systems don't always work is because they're designed to be managed in clock time. And clock time is kind of irrelevant when you're living in real time. You don't access the clock the way you are when you live. You live in real time, which is a world which all time flies when you're having fun or drags on when you're doing things like doing your taxes. And the good news is that real time is actually mental. It exists in your head. You create it. And anything you create, you can manage. So what we're here to do today is to remove the self-sabotage, the self-limitation you have around not having enough time, or today not being the right day to do whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's to start a business or manage your current business properly or finish the tasks at hand that you have on your to-do list. And just like over 2 years ago, it wasn't the right time for me to go back to school, but when I did, it actually worked out and I was able to get a double certification. So there are 3 things that we spend time on: our thoughts, our conversations, and our actions. And regardless of whatever it is you are doing, your time is made up of those things: thoughts, conversations, and actions. So here's a quote that I thought was something good for today. It's not about having enough time, it's about making enough time. So let's talk about that for a minute. Why are we all just so busy all the time, right? We're so busy and our plates are so full and we don't have enough time to do what we want to do, only what we feel like we have to do. So according to a survey from Glassdoor, the average employee takes half of what is allotted to them in their vacations, and 15% don't take any holiday time at all. We all have 24 hours in a day, and it's how we plan those hours out that makes the difference. If you think about the superstars out there, actresses and recording artists, they every day in their life, every day and every hour is planned down to the minute. So they might be flying in from California on a red eye, then they might do a concert in the evening, and in between they're doing tons of press. Every hour is on track. They are being told what they have to do, where they have to be. But we're only accountable to ourselves. And somehow we do get our work done, but are we doing it so efficiently that we're able to have a good work-life balance? And I want to just make sure, I mean, we're doing this via webinar, but if you want to comment, if you're having a good time and everything's working out good for you on work-life balance, feel free to put that in there. Or if work-life balance is more of a struggle for you, you can put that in there too. I think, so many of us are in the same boat. Sometimes it feels good to just put it out there. So, that it's a struggle every day. For me, it's for me as well, keeping track of our time, where we want to be, where we have to be. But we always have to be on point and paying attention to what you are making enough time for. We're in a time where we've allowed ourselves to really overwhelm our plates. And sometimes we have unrealistic goals. And then we have a hard time admitting that those are unrealistic goals. And then we have a hard time moving forward. So it's a vicious cycle that keeps going round and round. On this slide, I want to talk to you about the 7 energetic viewpoints on time. And as I mentioned, again, we're going to be talking about mindset instead of tools in some of these slides because it really is a way of thinking. The 7 energetic viewpoints on time was put together by the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and something that when you look at, you can really take a look and see the different ways you can look at time. So we're going to go over the levels. Level 1 is kind of more of a victim level. It's a victim mode level. It's the thinking that time is continually working against me. So you're having a tough day and you're like, time is working against me. I'm at time's mercy. I don't have enough. So the question is, do we want to be at anyone or anything's mercy? It sounds so self-defeating. And even if you know the clock is ticking and you're up against that clock, the thing about it is, how can you look at it where you're not self-sabotaging yourself? So the more the clock is counting down, the more frustrated, the more anxious you're getting. But you can't do anything about it, and you're doing the very, very best you can. What's another way to look at it? So we're going to go up the levels here and see. So level 2 is an action level, anger. It's an anger level. It moves you into action. You're no longer playing the victim and being like, oh my gosh, the time is totally against me. This is where time is something I fight against because I have so much. I need to get it done and not enough of it. I need to get done and not enough of it. You're frustrated. Your thought process is you're angry and now you're upset instead of being a victim. Level 3 is where your thought process is a little bit different. You're rationalizing here. Time is a natural part of life, and although it's limited, I can and will develop effective strategies to manage it. It's not a bad way to think when you're looking at your time, because I know when I ask people, can you, would you like to meet here, or let's schedule a time for our session? Oh my gosh, my whole week is booked. And that could be very, very true. But what is in there in that schedule that you really, really might be able to play with a little bit? And how important is it to you to put in that session? And I'm using that as an example. It could be finishing your project. It could be cleaning out your closet. It doesn't matter. Level 4, coming from a service and compassionate way of thinking. So you're at a point here now where you're saying there are so many ways I can contribute, and I want to use my time to make sure I make the greatest contribution in the time I have. So those are the first 4 levels. And what I'm saying here is that you could start off in level 1, but when you realize that you are in level 1 and you are now frustrated, once you realize that, you can start to think that you have the control over how you want to view where you're at that moment. And you might need to stay in that victim mode. You might need to, because that's where you're at. But the point is you have control to move that feeling and that emotion around. In level 5, this is a place where you find peace and acceptance. The way I use my time is totally up to me. I can relax and do nothing, or I can create or do something exciting. It's my choice and a gift. And time is a gift. Level 6, the thought process here is synthesis. Time stands still for me whenever I'm completely focused in the experience of life. There is an eternity of time as this moment is endless, and it's my choice. Most of us don't live in this space, but I think it's a great thing to strive through. And I hope that many of you, as we go through this and you go through the thought process, you might be able to get to that place. And then level 7, thought process is non-judgment. The result is creation. Time is a linear illusion created in the human experience to measure what happens to be in a limited life. Not sure how many of you think this way, but wouldn't it be amazing if we all could? So which one resonates with you? You don't have to answer that via the chat box, but I want you to think about that the next time something comes up and you're feeling frustrated about time. And think about where you can move and what level of energy you can put around what's going on in your life when it comes around time management. Once you're aware of your thoughts, you truly do create your reality. And you can make the decision of whether you want to come from victim level or the service level, or the level 6, which is the flow level. You may not have enough time to get everything done, but you can choose to only be concerned with that thought, or you can do something about it. So let's talk a little bit more. Overall life balance. Now, wouldn't this be great for all of us to have? And that's what we're all striving for. So, conflict comes when our activities and obligations and commitments and responsibilities are not aligned with our values and our priorities. So to manage your time better, one way is to plan out what your goal is for the day, the week, the month, the year. It's up to you. Take it in small bites, or you could take the entire chunk. It's up to you. Create a strategy, which is your approach to achieve the goal. And then you put in your tactics. Those are the tools you use in pursuing an objective associated with your strategy. But then you want to make sure that it aligns with your values. And of course, allowing for some flexibility within the framework, because it's very defeating if you are constantly getting down on yourself when you are doing the best you can. So if you start to procrastinate, which we'll talk about in a minute, or you start giving yourself excuses, then that's not called flexibility. It's when you know that in order to do something the way you need to, you may need to give yourself more time. It's about giving yourself permission. And that's a big word today, permission. When it comes to time management, permission is key. So let's talk a little bit about clearing out the clutter, and I'll read the slide here. Clear out the mental and physical clutter to make room and time for the things you want and need to do. So if your workplace space or your office or your home is filled with physical clutter, it could be holding you back from being productive. I know a very busy desk for some, they know where everything is, it works out perfect. But for others, having to search for the things that are buried on their desk takes time. So it's not just about that. It's also about mental clutter, right? So we have a lot of limiting beliefs sometimes about a certain person or situation, or even about ourselves, that holds us back. And that takes up a lot of our own time when we have concerns and we're worried about how someone's going to view a situation or something we've done, or how we're going to be perceived. From that time, it may take you to find something in a drawer or a closet, because it's not neat, the thought process of being worried about what someone may think of what you what you've done or what your end result may be, all those things are truly clutter. They clutter your mind and your space, and then you get stuck. And it can be so overwhelming to figure out how to find the time to do what you need to do to move forward. I know for me, sometimes the house may be a mess because, and I think, okay, I don't have enough time to clean it. I've got to get this done. But it's amazing how once I know someone is going to be coming over, the time seems to happen and I make the time. It goes up on the priority list. And before the doorbell rings, the house is cleaned. So think about what clutter surrounds you and how you could find the time to clear it out. My suggestion is, and what I do with my clients is we create a list of the different mental and physical clutter in their life. I have a workbook exercise that I do with them. And then what we do is we figure out how we're going to declutter, and it helps them to get some more time into their schedule. So procrastination is a big one here. So what causes us not to clean out the clutter? And procrastination is one word for it. This is a key word because it leads to frustration, overwhelm. There's many reasons for it. We're overextended. We have low motivation. We're perfectionists, fear of evaluation, and avoidance. So I want to take a few of these to go over with you. So when we procrastinate, there's an underlying reason that many times goes unnoticed. From procrastinating on getting a presentation done until the very last minute that it's due, to buying a gift the day of a birthday party. And even though 2 weeks before you might have thought about all the things that you had to do, why didn't you do it? You put it on the back burner. So if we are prioritizing correctly, the minute we think about it, we'll do it, because the likelihood of getting to it again within those 2 weeks is very low. And then we wind up the day before or 48 hours before actually getting nervous that it's not done. So why do we do this? Why do we overextend ourselves? Sometimes we have the belief system that unless we are busy every minute of the day, not accomplishing or working towards our goals, and then the overwhelm happens, and sometimes we just become paralyzed. So when we do, time starts to slip away and we start to feel defeated, and it becomes a very vicious cycle. And you'll hear that a lot throughout, because once you get into these types of things, procrastination, it just keeps coming back in your life unless you start building boundaries, which we'll talk about too. So if we have low motivation on a particular situation, something we need to work on, or cleaning the house or doing the laundry, then we may procrastinate in getting it done. And then what we need to do is really take a look at the reason why. Because there is an underlying reason why for procrastination. We just don't like it. We don't like to do those things. But sometimes that means that we need to put them first. And it's not about forcing yourself to like it. It's just knowing that if it has to get done and it's a must have, how can you find a way to do it that will add some joy into your life? For example, many people put off cleaning. I'll use that as an example, but they love music. So they throw on the music and that helps them to clean quicker. It helps them to get the job done. What little bit of happiness can you build in for the things you procrastinate on? Perfectionism. And for those of us who are perfectionists, there are fears that doing less than a perfect job is going to interfere with your productivity and the way you're going to be viewed. Often it will feel worse to not do a job at all, though, than it being less than perfect. But still, those of us who are perfectionists, there are times we wait and procrastinate because we are afraid that it's not going to be viewed the way we want it to be, and it's not going to be done the way we really want it to be. So the best thing to do is to ask yourself, what level of performance would I expect from a friend or a colleague, and go from there. Remember, your perfect is not someone else's perfect, and everyone has an opinion. And if you're procrastinating due to your perfect tendencies, then you need to evaluate where that thought process came from. There could be many reasons that not doing something is better than not doing it perfectly. Fear of evaluation and fear of judgment. So how much impact will that evaluation from someone else really have on your life? Depending on who you are worried will evaluate you, you have to put it in perspective. You can give yourself some 100%. You can give 100% of yourself to what you're doing, but that doesn't guarantee that someone else is going to see that from you. So you have to do it the way you want to do it and be who you want to be. But at the end of the day, if that's holding you back from your evaluation, you have to reevaluate yourself and say, what am I going to gain by not doing this and doing that in a timely manner? Because the more we put something off, the more frustration happens. Again, that vicious cycle. And of course, then avoidance of negative experience can also go with the fear of evaluation. If the task you're about to do rates up there with like a painful dental visit or cleaning out your closet like we just talked about, then it actually may be best to get it out of the way first. And as I said, infuse some fun and things that you can do. I mean, a dental visit, it's hard to infuse fun, but it has to be done. So it's ways in which that we can look at things utilizing those levels that we just talked about. And those levels, we talked about time levels, there's 7 levels of energy around everything that we do. That just happens to be the time management 7 levels. And I apologize as I'm going quickly through this because I usually do these types of things for way more than a half hour. So let's talk about distractions, and that's a huge, that takes away a lot of your time. So you're in your office, just envision this, you're in your office and you're under a terrible time crunch for something. Someone knocks at the door, your office phone rings, your cell phone dings because now somebody posted something on Facebook and tagged you in it. Someone texts you on your cell phone and your next appointment's going to be there in 20 minutes and now your head is spinning. Anyone ever feel this way? I'm sure there's people out there, I know I have. There was a study done by a Dr. Gloria Mark from the University of California, and it showed that it takes an average of 23 minutes for a person to fully regain his or her focus on a task after being distracted. That's a lot of time wasted. So I'm going to go through some of these distractions. Personal technology, we have smartphones and smartwatches, right? And these devices, they have kind of blurred the lines between personal and professional communication. So we now do multiple things with these devices, several of which are listed on this slide, including email. And even when you're buried under deadlines or you're on a vacation, the emails eat into your time that you need to work on something or you want to enjoy time with family because they provide an addictive nature that we are addicted to these electronic devices. It's instant gratification. We're connected. We want to be connected, but now we're so connected. So the best thing to do is to click out of your email, which so many people have a problem with. But if you want to manage your time better, this is one of the tools. When you're working on a project, click out of that email and it will still be there. But the other thing that I will share that I used to do too is I would put an out of office, and you have to, of course, talk to your supervisor about that, but put an out of office on saying that you're under project deadlines because those emails are going to sit there anyway, and you're not going to be giving 100% to them even if you start to answer them and if you're in the middle of a project. So that is definitely something that you might want to do. But when you're on vacation, turn off your notifications on your cell phone. Again, the emails will still be there. Social media. Your phone dings and pings or whatever sound it makes every time a notification comes in. Turn them off if you want to stay focused. It's extremely distracting. And once any of the social media sites, what you think will just be one quick response. So if you see anything and what you think you'll just respond quickly, you know that it gets distracting and it pulls time out of your schedule. And before you know it, you've looked at somebody's full timeline on Facebook or you're on Instagram and you're looking at everything and now a half hour's gone by. It takes away your time. Instant messaging, browsing the web, phone calls. Not much we can do if a phone call comes in. Work environment, people knocking at your door, constantly trying to take your time. And then there's just a lot of confusion and other people. And then yourself, you're going to need a lot of mental and physical energy to juggle your priorities and to keep focused. Multitasking. And while I was writing this presentation, I realized I checked my phone, got caught up in a phone call, several text messages, and then before I knew it, I had to leave for an appointment. It's always going to happen, but it's how do you manage your time, excuse me, so that you not multitasking so much, because when we do that, we are really only giving a small portion of our mind to that task at hand. Boundaries. So this is a very important one. When we set these boundaries in every part of our life, we then can create time for ourselves, and you'll see that there's 6 boundaries stated on here. So what we need to do when we set boundaries are, I'll give you an example. Someone I know had vacation time. They had their second and third in command all ready to go should something come up. They said, I don't want to be called. They talked to their supervisor. They were going to be away and they really needed the time. And what happened? Something happened and the supervisor called and said, I really need an answer on this. And she turned around and she set a boundary and she said, I'm sorry, I'm with my family. This time is very important to me. And I was able to give my second and third command second and third in command all the information necessary. I trust them and their decisions, and please reach out to them. And when she set that boundary, a lot of things changed, and she was able to go on vacation and feel very free. So when you look at this slide, excuse me, what boundaries can you set around these 6 different types, and really make sure that you're holding true to them, because it could change your life and give you back some time. Creating your personal and business hours of operation. In here, it's very self-explanatory, but there's a lot that you can put in here. You can create a time for you to just drink coffee alone. Maybe you have a million coffee meetings and you just would love to have a day where it's just you. You get to make that choice. You get to figure that. You get to decide what you're going to put on your calendar. For work, we all know that, there's only so many boundaries you can set, but it's what you put out there to everyone to know. Can they bother you during a time where there's a lot of pressure on you? Or are you going to set your boundary and say, I'm sorry, now is not a good time? So also the other thing too is if you schedule an appointment and your boss tells you 2 o'clock is an appointment, you're not going to schedule anything else during that time. So why is it that we miss dentist appointments and we miss other appointments to take care of ourselves? Because we're not making those priorities. So it's about permission. Again, I said it earlier, the permission to be able to say, I deserve the time on my schedule. The mindset to say that this is for me and I need to make sure that this happens, and not feel selfish about it because it's part of you taking care of you. Just like it's part of you taking care of business when that 2 o'clock meeting that wasn't supposed to happen at 2 o'clock comes up and is now on your calendar and you have 5 other things that have to happen and you have to now reprioritize. 7 levels of balance, and I know we're running low on time, so I'm going to go quickly through these. So when you're looking at balancing your life, level 1, again, back to that victim mode, balance is not really possible in my life. Level 2, you're coming from a little bit more anger. The only way I can ever achieve balance is to make sure that I protect my time and myself from those who want to take advantage of me. But right now, I really don't have the time to deal with that. Level 3, we're getting into that cooperation level. Balance is a give and take process. It's an art. Level 4, we're coming from service. When I serve others, including the organization I work with and for, I feel like I'm serving my purpose, and that keeps me in balance with my true goal. That is a great place to be if you can find the mindset to do that, and it is available to everyone. Level 5, balancing is a game that I play each day when I choose from the many different possibilities in my life. Level 6, balance is like a lava lamp. It flows from one focus to another, but in the grand scheme of things, the big pictures were always in balance. And level 7, balance is the experience of duality between who I truly am and who I choose to play as in each moment. Balance is an adjective that describes life, not a noun or a verb. So these are things that you get to choose while you're going through different situations in your life. And when you see that you're in a place that you know isn't going to be productive, it's finding a way to move up those levels, which is what I work on with my clients. The 80-20 rule, generally speaking, 20% of our effort produces 80% of our results. That means if I have a list of 10 things to do, 2 of those are likely to produce greater results than the other 8 put together. So identify which tasks really move you forward to your goals and give those the priority that you deserve. You may find that some of the lesser tasks no longer need to be done. And here are some other tips. As we talked about, create a priority list. Calendar all that is important, including breaks. Breaks are important to include. Excuse me. Create a list of what drains your time and energy, and really evaluate that list. And create a list of who drains your time and energy, and see if there needs to be a conversation about setting boundaries. And take mini breaks during your projects and longer breaks during your holidays and your weekends to recharge. And then, as Maggie said, I'm a personal development coach. I do business coaching as well, and consulting, leadership and sales training. And as many of you probably have heard of DISC and Myers-Briggs, which are both personality assessments, I have an assessment tool that I utilize, which is more about energy levels, and it's an attitudinal assessment and how you view the different things that happen in your life under normal circumstances as well as under stressful circumstances. And we work together on how to take you from where you are to where you want to be. And for everybody on this call, I am offering a 30-minute free consultation with no obligation at all. But I am here to help in any way that I can, knowing that time management is something that we are all working so hard on. So Maggie?
Thank you, Jodi. If anyone has any questions now, they can type them into the chat box or email info@savvyladies.org. And we had a question come in already, which is, sometimes I really feel like I need a mental break from work. Are there mini breaks we can take, like checking social media or going for a short walk, that will do us some good? But how can we make sure to not let them go too long?
That's a great question. So mental breaks are so important during the day, and I definitely suggest them. Again, it's all going to go by, I always like to say this disclaimer, it all is going to go by what your place of business allows, but because some are very stringent and others aren't. But a mental break is great. But the thing about it is that if you calendar them, and you can, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, set an alarm on your phone. If you feel like it's going to, if you feel that you're going to go too long and you're going to be going down your timeline and your feed and you're going to get lost in browsing on the internet or taking that walk outside, and I would set an alarm. But I do believe that absolutely those breaks are so important. Just leaving when you know that you're getting frustrated, leaving the desk and breathing and going out and doing some breathing exercises, or just listening to music in your headphones for 5 minutes, whatever it's going to be, will really recharge the batteries a little bit. I hope I answered that question.
Okay, thanks. And the next question was from the slide about distractions. And the question is, what can I do when I'm my own distraction?
That is a great question. So when you're, and so many people are, so when your mind is going into 50 million directions, it depends on what type of person you are. But sometimes writing down what it is that you need to get accomplished, and I mean physically, not typing it on the computer, writing down, okay, I need to do X. Right now, it's important that I do Y. Writing it down and physically reading it to kind of bring your mind to one thought process is definitely one way to do that. I would also say another way to do that for some that are willing to do this is to clear your mind, sit back, and not do a full-on meditation because you don't have the time at that moment. But it's just kind of going into the zone, closing your eyes, and listening to your breathing for a few minutes, taking some couple of deep breaths in and releasing that, and really just paying attention to your breath to calm your mind down, because you can only focus on that one thing. Sometimes everybody's different. Some people can't get to that place. But these are just some suggestions. The other thing is when you're in your own distraction, if you can, take that walk. Take that walk. You might have to exude some energy. You might need to get a little bit of exercise. Go take a walk, get some cold water, splash some cold water on your face, and come back to that piece of paper that you wrote, I need to get XYZ done by 2 o'clock today. And then get back into it again. Those are some suggestions.
Okay, good advice. And last question we have is, what advice do you have for someone like me who can sometimes spend too much time planning my day or week and not enough time actually doing the tasks that I should be doing?
So what nitty gritty are you getting into would be my question when you're planning your week. Are you, is it too much? Is it overkill? Are you in there saying, 10 minutes for a snack, which could be great for some, but if it's going to take you too long to get that all in there, I would give yourself a time limit. So, sometimes what we need to do is really just give ourselves time limits. We set alarms to wake up in the morning every day to get things done that we need to do. Setting an alarm on yourself for other things is not a bad idea. It actually works, and it helps you to limit where you are and where you need to go. So if you're distracted, or if you can't get your priority list done in a certain amount of time, give yourself that specific amount of time and say, I need to get this done. The other thing is really take a look at what are the things on the list. So as we talked about in one of the other slides, sometimes when you reevaluate the list, some of those things don't need to be there. So it's all about what are you getting down to, and how small are the bites. But my suggestion would absolutely be to limit your time of how long you're going to write this list. And it might be a good idea too to put in there, if that's what's important to you, put in your strategies and put in your objectives. Because if you could put strategies into how you're going to get these things done, maybe that'll launch you to actually do them. Again, I'm not talking to you directly to ask some questions, but these are just some little tidbits that you might be able to use.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Jodi, for a really helpful presentation. And I want to thank everyone who joined us today and asked questions. We hope you'll be joining us again. So thanks again so much, Jodi.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who joined. I appreciate it. And thanks to you, Maggie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.